Hello and welcome to Out and About Art, your PGTV source for all things art in Polk County. I'm your host, Yasmin Ali. First up this month, we're checking out an art festival that needs no introduction. Mayfaire by the Lake, one of the largest and oldest outdoor art shows in Central Florida, is presented each year on Mother's Day weekend by the Polk Museum of Art. The beautiful shores of Lake Morton in downtown Lakeland hosted 187 uniquely talented artists this year, all of whom were there to greet thousands of visitors with stunning pieces to add to their art collection. I got the chance to attend the festival last month and meet some of the artists who were there to present their work. Let's take a look.
My name is Lisa P. Young. I'm based out of Stuart, Florida, and my work would be considered like an acrylic mixed media, heavy on the texture and heavy on the bright intense colors. And I've been coming to Mayfaire I think about 4 years. It's a very hard show to get into. What a lot of people don't understand is it's heavily juried. I mean heavily, a lot of people apply, so you might get 500, 800 people for a couple hundred spots. So you never know from year to year if you're going to get in. So every year I get in, I'm very, very fortunate. I feel fortunate because for me it's very close to my home, and I love it. The people are art savvy. They ask a lot of questions, they love to engage with the artists, and they purchase, and it's very special. People bring their moms out tomorrow and today and buy special pieces, or typical customers will select one piece for that year. So I'm very impressed with the support of the arts that Lakeland does, especially Mayfaire. I originally was more of a watercolor artist, very flat, but I wasn't thriving and I wasn't happy. And as I progressed as an artist, I found that of all the elements of design, I'm infatuated with texture and color. So as I was growing and evolving, I was searching for materials that would yield the very thick texture and intense colors. And so as I did it, the customers responded, and so I just did it more and more and kind of found my tribe of people that love my art. I like to make what people want to buy. So I have found through years of just being a Florida-based artist what people generally tend to like. So I like to make the best thing that they like, and so it generally tends to be coastal or animals. Or in this town it's the swans, but I do a lot of iconic Florida scenes like flamingos and palm trees and lots of bright colors. So I've just found that that's what the Florida customer likes. Art it's the fabric that ties our culture together, the arts, whether it's music, whether it's singing, whether it's drama, whether it's even cooking or making your gardens pretty. It's what binds us, it's what shakes the dust off of our daily life, as one famous painter said. And I've always thought it's the arts and culture is the jewelry to our towns, and that's what makes us sparkle. And the more you support it, it also contributes to a vibrant economy. We're a vibrant source of revenue for Florida, so must continue to support the arts or Florida will look really bland.
My style is kind of a combination of old medieval art mixed with storybook illustration and also some contemporary fantasy art, right? That's really kind of mostly where it all comes from. But sometimes I just paint things and I don't think about like what style it is. It's just how I like to paint and the things I like to put in there and the stuff I have to work with. I'm sure a lot of people like this, but even from a very young age, always had a very active imagination. And for me, it was important to go get the training so that I could kind of bring in those things I was thinking about into reality. And that's what art school helped me do, is get better at that. Usually I like the paintings to require second, third, or fourth looks, right? When I paint them, I try to put things in them that you won't notice at first, but if you start thinking about it, it'll show up, and then you're like, oh, I kind of get it. Flying pigs is often kind of an indication, that the impossible's happening, right? And so I call this one teaching the impossible. And the idea here is that he's got this little ice cream and he's kind of tempting that pig to go off the edge of the cliff to see if those wings work, because nobody knows, right? Is it going to happen? He doesn't know. But what I like about it is you see that and then you're like, oh, he's actually riding it. He's invested in this, right? So if the pig goes down, he's going with it. I always keep a sketchbook and ideas come all the time. I've just been doing it my whole life, so it's really easy for me to recombine things and think about them. And you have those aha moments. When I have those, I've got my sketchbook. I either sketch them down or I write it down so I don't forget them. And I've got books full, ideas full. I'm not going to be able to get to paint all the ideas I've already had. It's so much easier for me to come up with ideas than it is to sit and take the time to paint. When you buy art, right, it's kind of an indication to some of the artists that, this is worth doing and this is worth having, right? And as an artist, I like to think that what I'm doing will bring them, somebody happiness or make their life a little bit better, a little bit every day, right? When they look at that picture, it'll put a smile on their face, or it'll mean something to them personally, or it'll make them think of something. So a lot of it is just being more connected, right? So something like this just helps people connect to each other. It helps keep the creativity in the community flowing.
My art is very unique. I do the Gyataku Japanese fish rubs on rice paper. So I take the actual fish that I catch. I'm an artistic angler. And I have a process where I prep the fish and I paint all the colors right onto the fish and then very carefully take delicate Japanese rice papers and press onto the fish and make a beautiful impression onto the rice paper. And then I go back in and do the details. And the great thing about this art is it originated in Japan. It records back 100 years ago, and that's how the fishermen would actually record their catch and create a receipt to get paid by the fishmonger. And it's also very sustainable because I get to go out on my boat, catch my art, make the fish prints, and then paint the fish, and then rinse it off. It's water-soluble ink and enjoy them for dinner. So it's the whole cycle of life. Well, I was an art major my whole life, and I ended up in business. And I worked for international trade in Washington, D.C., and my territory ended up being Asia. So I traveled through Japan and southern China, Hong Kong, and discovered Gyataku and really fell in love with it. And since I've been a diver and angler my whole life, I'm a Pisces, I think it really spoke to me. So I learned how to do it and reinvented myself as a Gyataku artist. It just, everything in the water inspires me. And I love to fish, and Mother Nature does most of the work, but I just try and mimic it. That's kind of my goal, is to sort of make everybody aware of, everything under the sea and how beautiful it is, and to preserve it, bring it back to life. When I was an art major, it was, I really wanted to make a career out of it, but, way back when, in the 70s, everybody would say, hey, you got to get serious, and, are you going to make a living at that? So it worked out very kismetically for me, because I went and did the corporate world, and I like to think I got the business sense of it. And then by getting exposure to the Gyataku and falling in love with this style of art, I kind of came full circle. So, I think the moral of the story is you can always reinvent yourself at any point in your life. Find out what you love, and do that. Well, Mayfaire has a long history of, being here. And these are local artists, Florida artists. And this community is super supportive. The Polk Museum organization is just all about art. And the setting here on this lake, it's just, in fact, my husband and I were actually married on this lake at the Methodist Church right here 28 years ago. So I have a long, long history of this town, and it really means something special to me.
For more information on this year's Mayfaire by the Lake, visit www.mayfairbythelake.org. Next up is our monthly Artist Spotlight. Georgia Lynn Dean is a barista and coffee roaster at local Lakeland shop Concord Coffee, and she expresses her creativity through varied art mediums such as writing, drawing, and painting. Attending Florida Southern College led her to discover a passion for printmaking and graphic design, which she uses to express themes such as nature, humanity, and the circle of life. Here's a look at the artwork of Georgia Lynn Dean.
My name is Georgia Lynn Dean. I always am just trying to explore. I tend to get kind of bored if I start doing the same thing too often. So I'll start off a lot of times drawing, like I have been my whole life since I was a kid, drawing and writing, just whatever I feel. Sometimes I feel though like I've been doing the same thing so many times over and over again that I need a new way to interpret it. So in that case, I usually switch to painting. At Florida Southern, actually, my senior year, I fell into printmaking, which is kind of like the bulk of my work right now. And that's where all the illustrations that I've been drawing for years finally found a way to, find a new life on a page rather than just feeling like something unfinished in a sketchbook. Printmaking has been honestly probably one of the most therapeutic, I guess you could almost say cathartic forms of art for me. Yeah, I went back to school after taking a year off and living in California. And when I came back, I decided I wasn't gonna put as much pressure on myself to try to be the perfect college student, to try to get all the internships lined up. Obviously, I wanted to still focus on school. That was still very important to me, but I didn't want it to be so much that it was suffocating me how it was before I left. I ended up taking a printmaking class just because it was an elective that I had open and I thought it would be interesting. I had really no idea about it, just thought I'd give it a chance. But yeah, so this one's about healing. I started off with a sketch, which I kind of compiled of a ton of different reference materials. Kind of mapped out how I wanted it to look. I got a plate that I thought it would look good on. From there, I used transfer paper, so that's what this kind of weird texture paper is. And I transferred it onto this metal plate. So transferred this image onto here after coating it with this substance that protects the metal. And then from there, you can trace the lines that you already created. And that exposes these lines rather than leaving them protected. So you dunk it in the acid, you let it soak for designated amounts of times, depending on if you wanted light and dark areas. This is just strictly line work, so it can be the same amount of time. I think it was 1.5 minutes. And then the acid eats away into the metal plate, and you take it out and you take off the hard cover that was on it. You cover it with ink and then you send it through on some newsprint. So the first run is kind of the most exciting because it's the first time you actually get to see what your image will look like. So this was actually the first proof I made of that specific image. And I was really happy with it, so I didn't change anything really. The message that I want people to take away from my art, as cheesy as it sounds, and it will sound cheesy, but it's true, love, I guess. That's the main thing. I think that's the one thing that unifies everyone and everything in the world. So it's what connects us to the plants and the trees and to the animals and to each other. And that's kind of what everything that I create reflects back to in some way or another. And I just hope people like find peace. That's what I am always seeking out. I mean, that's what I feel like a lot of people are always seeking out when they're living their everyday life. But it's always been a way of me like finding resolve within myself about the way things are in the world and like where I stand with the world. So it's always nice whenever someone picks up something that I've created and they're like, oh, like this really speaks to me. It reminds me of, you know, my son or whatever it is. I actually did a market here at Concord a couple months ago, I want to say, and this was one of the pieces that I created, and I was selling it there. And this lady came by and she picked it up and she looked at it, and I wasn't really sure kind of what her opinion of it was or her impression because her face was just like, you know, a blank slate. So I was just kind of sitting there in silence, like trying not to look at her, letting her just have her time to look and reflect. But like after a minute or so, she was looking at it and she asked me what it meant. And so when I created this piece, I actually had just lost one of my really close friends. His name was Adam. And I really struggled with that, obviously, because he was so close to me and just such a great person and like such a joy for everyone to be around. So for me, as I'm trying to make sense of it all, you know, like through drawing and writing and just reading and everything in the world, I kind of like came with this image of, it's, I mean, essentially just a circle of life, but just how, you know, the energy that we put out into the world, how it keeps on cycling through, because, I mean, you know, energy can't be created or destroyed, so it's got to go somewhere. And with Adam, he like left this huge legacy of love, which is, again, like something that I feel is just like such a unifying factor for everyone. He might not be here anymore, like physically, but, you know, flowers are still here, and we're all still here, and we have this huge opportunity to love each other, and it's all still happening, whether or not he physically is still here. But I told her, and I kind of looked at her, because that's kind of a lot for a farmer's market in the morning, but she just gave me a really big hug, and she like had tears in her eyes, and I like kind of got tears in my eyes, and I was like, what? You know, but she told me that she actually had lost her son like around the same time, and she said she saw it and she immediately picked it up, and she was like, I knew exactly what it was, but I just wanted to make sure. And I thought that was really special, and she got like the same piece from it that I kind of felt as I created it. So that was a really special moment, and that was such a like full circle moment for me as well, when I realized that that's what's really important to me as I'm creating things, is that even if not everyone gets it, even if not everyone thinks it's like cool or interesting or unique or whatever, I don't really care. Like, I just want to make things that other people who have gone through the same experience as me can see and understand and feel at peace with, and I don't know, have something that resonates with them, because that's kind of what it's all about, you know? Like, we're all here for each other. As I'm still dealing with different things, whether it's like anxiety or stress or whatever it is that people deal with on the day-to-day, that I deal with on the day-to-day, something constant and like a beautiful reminder, I guess, of like the ebb and flow of things and like the natural seasons that we all go through, that the whole world goes through, has always been just the earth and all the plants and trees and flowers. And it sounds kind of cheesy, but I've always thought that that's like the most beautiful thing that we can witness, is just like the way the world keeps turning and how like inside of us like the same thing is happening. So I guess it's kind of an ode to that, or I guess just like a praise or a celebration of that, that's helped me work through a lot of things. So yeah.
If you'd like to keep up with the artwork of Georgia Lynn Dean, visit her website at www.georgialyndean.myportfolio.com. There, you can find links to her Facebook and Instagram pages as well. For our last segment this month, we're checking out a one-of-a-kind theater experience. Rogue Stage produces exciting stories in unique and unexpected ways that engage the Polk County community. Their latest effort brought the magic of Fringe theater to Lakeland with a 2-night show called Tales from the Orlando Fringe. 4 award-winning storytellers performed their hilarious, interactive, and electrifying one-man shows for audiences at Lakeland Live. I got the chance to speak with producing director of Rogue Stage Tom Misrobian and executive director of Lakeland Live Shane Lawler to learn about how this event came about and what they hope for the future of Fringe theater in Polk County. Let's take a look.
Great. I'm Shane Lawler. I'm the executive director of Lakeland Live, and we are a non-profit performing arts facility in downtown Lakeland, and we showcase some of the very best talent that Lakeland and Polk County has to offer. Lakeland Live has worked with Rogue Stage before, and we did a show last year, and they're wonderful, very, very unique group of people here in Lakeland, doing something which they're obviously very, very passionate about, but isn't always an easy road, isn't always an easy thing to do, but they're very, very passionate about what they do and bring it here to Lakeland. So we're very, very happy to be partnered with those guys and groups like them. It's what we're here for. I was extremely excited when Tom first brought up trying to bring shows from the Orlando Fringe to Lakeland. I've lived all over America and England, been to Edinburgh, of course, and it was very, very nice to meet somebody that wanted to bring something edgy and a little bit different to us here in Lakeland, and really fought hard to make it happen. So really, I think without Tom and Rogue Stage championing this, it probably wouldn't have happened. I don't think we should be considered a poor cousin to Tampa Orlando in the arts culture sense. I think that people are doing wonderful things here. So I'd say people should check it out because they're going to get some good stuff if they do. They're going to see some quality entertainment. So do it not out of a sense of charity, do it out of a sense of discovering something new and fresh that they might not have realized was down the road from them.
I have been a proponent of Fringe festivals for years, and I love that kind of entertainment. And when I go to these Fringe festivals, which are theater festivals that take place all over the world, the longest running one in the United States is in Orlando. It runs during the month of May. And these festivals feature original works, usually about an hour in length, everything from one-person plays to 20 people musical parodies. And it is a great place for creativity. And when I go there, I see a group of theater goers that does not attend in other theaters. For example, if I go to community theater or if I go to things at the Lakeland Center, those demographics are either very young or very old, and there's that group of people in the middle, 20 to 50, that need stories. But folks in Lakeland tend to think of driving to Orlando as the same as driving to Syria. It's a long and dangerous trip, and they're not wrong, but the entertainment that's going on there is worth it. So I got together with Mike Marinaccio, who is the producing manager of the Orlando Fringe Festival, and just said, how can we spread the word here to Lakeland to give people a little taste, just a little piece of what goes on at this festival? Because you say Fringe Festival, and most folks in Lakeland, they don't know what that is. Is this some kind of crafting thing where we're putting fringe on, our vests or something? And so I came up with the idea of bringing 4 performers who happen to be 4 very dear friends of mine that I've met at the festivals in past years, and asked them if they would want to come down. And the great thing about Fringe performers is they have show ready to travel. Martin Dockery is a very special performer to me. He wrote a play called Moonlight After Midnight, and that was the very first show that we did as a theater company. In fact, it was the first time any theater company had produced a Martin Dockery play other than Martin Dockery. And so we have a very special connection with Rogue and Martin Dockery together. And when I found out he was coming this year, and I went up and saw his show, earlier in the year, I said, will you come down? And absolutely.
Quick question, and you don't have to answer this, okay? Because there's a lot of people that want to remain anonymous so as not to disrupt the time-space continuum. But do we have any time travelers in the house? You don't have to raise your hand. Can I get it? I'm just, oh, we do. Okay, all right, I'm not going to point you out, okay, all right? But if the rest of you are wondering, who amongst us are the time travelers? established? Well, I'll tell you this, just look around you, okay, all right? And you will see the people that have traveled from the past to be here in the future, 2019, and you will see that they have all dressed in the way that they imagine we dress in 2019, but they didn't get it right.
Absolutely. Tim Mooney is one of the preeminent Shakespeare enthusiasts and experts in the country. He does the entire Julius Caesar in the Shakespearean language in an hour, and he plays all the parts. He literally makes his living traveling around and performing Shakespeare from, like I said, universities, elementary schools, high schools, fringe festivals, and that.
Oh, Caesar! Great Caesar! Until Casca draws his knife, crying out, "Speak hands for me!" With that, all of the conspirators join in on the stabbing, until finally, Brutus himself stabs his former friend.
Paul Strickland, he is a fantastic, like a modern day Aesop fable. The ideas he comes up with about things that happen at the Big Fib trailer park with Ain't True and Uncle False are tremendous. So he's doing a show called 90 Lies an Hour, which I have not seen, and I'm really excited to see it.
When Uncle False was 7 years old, his father had a 1949 forest green Plymouth Suburban station wagon. Uncle False says, "Well, I thought that car ran half on cuss words because it wouldn't start unless Daddy said a bunch of them." Come to think of it, I bet that's why we always walked to church.
And then Erica Kate McDonald does a show called Evacuated, which talks about her going to Indonesia as a exchange student during a time of political upheaval, and the whole country gets evacuated, and she gets caught up in that. It's a harrowing story. But so apart from just these guys being fantastic friends and excellent artists, they are the best of the best. They frequently win fringe festivals and win critics awards. Paul's won like 10 different Best of the Fest awards. In fact, last year at the Orlando Fringe, Paul and Erica's show 13 Dead Tales of Eugene won Best Show at the Fringe out of 120 shows. It was voted the best. So these are the best of the best, and if you're going to get a taste of Fringe, these are 4 really good tastes.
All of a sudden, for no reason at all, my sister starts whispering. Now she leans in, keeps whispering. She switches to English.
Why are you whispering?
I ask. She must have misunderstood my question. I had tried to ask her about term limits in Indonesia. I think what I actually said was,
how many times possible choose same person become president?
I thought that was close enough. But then she started whispering and looking around, even though we're alone in her own house.
And Fringe festivals are great at showing the cutting edge. There are shows at Fringe that have gone on to great success, and we need people to know that theater is not just the big Broadway musicals. There's a lot of great stuff out there.
If you'd like to keep up with future events held by Rogue Stage, visit them on the web at www.roguestage.com. And for more information about Lakeland Live events, visit them on the web at www.lakelandlive.com. Well, that's all I have for this month, but there's always plenty going on within the Polk County art scene. Stay tuned for a list of art events in your area. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time for more art out and about.